Hey, welcome back. We have, oh my gosh, this is the last session of 3 days worth of information. And if you have been paying attention, if you've been on with us, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you do this later, that'll be great. But I think I hope you recognized the value of having a team. Because we've had great presentations, we've had great presenters, we've had the experts here with us, and the stuff that they've provided for us has just been immense, and really appreciate it. I do want to do a quick shout out, if possible, to Newton Productions. Thank you. They're part of the technical team that's putting it on. They've done a great job. They haven't fallen asleep once that I can tell, and I think that would be a real issue for someone listening to attorneys and stuff for this much time. And Scott Cruz is over there, and those of you that listen to us on the radio show remember Scott Cruz. And thank you, Scott, for being here, handling audio and music and just general all-around stuff. Thank you, everybody. And Carly, we should have Carly over here on the couch with us. Carly has just put in an incredible amount of work pulling this together, organizing, getting people here, getting them to the right place, making sure that we have something to say. Although with me, that's a challenge. But other people have been prepared as they've come in. So thank you, Carly. And sitting with me right now is Bill Poulson. Bill Poulson is our Director of Client Services, as well as our resident tri-tip smoke expert. You did one not too long ago.
Yeah, we did like 8.
8 at one time.
At one time.
Just so you know. Many of us have a backyard, and Bill does not. He has a cookery. The kitchen isn't the right word, but there's a big smoker. Do you have a little smoker?
I have a pellet grill. I have 2 charcoal smokers.
Oh my gosh!
A propane grill, a natural gas grill, a wok. So yeah, we're able to cook a lot of good stuff out back.
Yeah. And he keeps getting rid of grass back there, so he doesn't have to mow as much. And I think that's a great idea.
Room for tables.
There you go. And so when you talk about a team, I mentioned earlier, I heard an interview a gentleman who drives Formula One. They asked him the cost of the car, and he says, I can't even tell you, I don't know. And he mentioned there was like 13,000 people that are responsible for putting one of those cars out there on the track and keeping it going and all that. And so recognizing the value of a team, I've got a great team, and I appreciate that. And again, before we're done, I'll say it probably once or 5 times more, to encourage you to put your team together, the folks that know the stuff that you don't know, so you don't have to know it to make good decisions. All right. All right. We're going to be joined, Bill and I are going to be joined by Justin Walker. Justin is, I'm going to owe him big for this. He's jumping in. We had a slot, we needed it filled, and I evidently ran down quickly to give blood and is now back, and we appreciate that. I don't see him yet on. I don't hear him
There he is.
on. There he is.
Hey, Justin.
Can you see us? Ba-da-bum. We can't hear you. Are you muted, unmuted on your end? Still can't hear you. We can see you. Good-looking guy. Over in Emmett.
Good haircut.
Yeah, and he's got the right haircut. Justin is joining us. The last on the way out the door, the one thing that we wanted to talk about is maybe if we can kind of come to an understanding of the costs that you run into in receiving care. And I want to talk about a couple of things. One is the cost of receiving care in home, and then there's the cost of care in a community and how to pay for that, and maybe how to compare and contrast that. One thing that I see as an attorney working with folks in these situations is they say, well, listen, I've paid for my house. I have no mortgage payments, so it's certainly cheaper for me to be at home. And it might be. I'm not saying that's not true. But one of the things as we talk about this is what are the costs still of being at home? And Aldo Cabrini in our last session was explaining that it's not cost-free. There's still a price to be paid for care, even if you're living at home and even if you have no mortgage payment. So, Justin, are we good? We got you? I know he's talking. I still can't hear him. I can see that he's talking. No, don't touch anything on your end. Hang on. His thing has the yellow around the box, so I can tell he's talking, because when you do a Zoom, that's how it works. So now he's laughing at me. I can tell that much. I know his laugh. Still can't. I'm sorry. We'll get you in here in just a second, Justin. I was trying to set this up. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. In my family, giving blood is an opportunity to pass out.
Oh, that's good.
And to possibly wet yourself as you do pass out.
That's not good.
We have stories. We have stories in the family, and thank you all for the folks that are that do that. So let's talk about this for a second. Living in your own home, having a house, the mortgage is just one expense.
Mm-hmm.
You are fortunate enough not to have a mortgage payment.
Correct.
But it's still not free to live in your place.
Far from it.
Yeah.
As we all know, anyone who lives in a house and owns a home, there's always expenses coming up. Little things pop up. You've got taxes, of course. Taxes have gone up as they follow the values of the homes, and you've got maintenance and everything about it. And I don't know if anyone's had to do some maintenance on their home lately, but
well, and if you're talking maintenance and repairs, that's an ongoing thing.
Right.
So no, I didn't put a roof on my house this year, but I got a quote to do it. It's going to be about 20 grand. So when we do it, 15 to 20 grand, that's a sizable amount. You divide that by 12, that's a grand a month that costs you. There's painting. We lost a water heater a couple of years ago. Actually, we lost the furnace. We got a new water heater as we replaced the furnace. And so those are all costs. They're ongoing costs. Mm-hmm. I know you don't mow the lawn.
No, I don't. I have a family that does that, but I also have a son who owns a lawn mowing business.
There you go.
And
does he charge you?
No, he does not. He lives in Montana, I remember. So.
Oh, that's right.
But he's had to raise his prices. Gas increases in cost, so now the lawn mowing the price has changed. And it's just like everything else. I think it's also important to remember, as we grow old, our house needs to change. So when are we going to make those changes to fit our age as we progress?
Well, we were talking about that, either downsizing or I've heard the terminology right-sizing. And right sizing for us was about the same size a house, but we put most all of the stuff on the same floor, no going up and down. We had a split level. It was where we raised the kids, and it was great. But it was up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So the right sizing, I think, is something that you've got to look at. What I think is difficult, though, is when people assume that it's free to live at home, especially when they're comparing that to, well, listen, if I go to assisted living, it's costing me X, and certainly can do better by staying home. That evens up a little bit, and so we talked about, some of the expenses. Have we got Mr. Walker on yet? I can see him. He's still good looking. Can you hear us, Justin? Oh,
He can
good.
hear us.
All right.
We just can't hear him.
We have a disconnect, and we'll bring him in a minute because I have I have a huge question for you. There's a big question for you, and I need you, but hang on because we're going to get there. So we've done a little bit of research as to ongoing costs. Now we're going to talk about monetary costs for just a minute. Then we're going to slip into something else, and then hopefully we've got Justin on because we're going to finish up with the question. Oh my gosh! Carly did a little bit of research for us and pulled together some ideas here. 15 lawn mows. If you're paying somebody, and at a certain point you have to pay somebody.
You do.
You can't do that yourself. HOA fees, that's about right for our neighborhood. Not every neighborhood has HOA fees. But there are a lot of people that don't want to live in some place that doesn't have HOA fees. You've got property tax, you got to pay electricity and gas, and there's sewer and trash. And the other thing that's interesting, though, to keep track of is that you have to keep track
Yes.
of all that. This is something that's ongoing. And I think we always assume that our time is not worth anything, right?
Right.
It doesn't cost me anything. Well, yeah, but your time is worth something.
Right.
And so you like to cook,
Yes, I do.
and you do a good job. Not all of us are so blessed, but we think in terms of, well, we're not going to go out to dinner, or we're going to cook at home because it doesn't cost. Well, that's, of course, if our time is not worth anything.
Right. Well, there's also how many people are used to cooking for 6? Because they had kids. The kids start to leave, you're cooking for 2. But you still cook for 6,
No,
and now you've got
you still cook for 6. We did that for a long time.
it's still hard to move to that, and that brings on costs.
Well, that was one of the things that I think my mom finally put her over the decision hump as far as moving into a community was, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, is going down to the store, buying the groceries, paying for the groceries, getting them out to the car, bringing them home, getting them up the stairs into the kitchen, getting that all put together. And I think she finally decided that was, her time was worth. That was not something that she enjoyed doing.
And how many of the kids have we talked to, either on the phone or in the conference room? I go to mom's house or go to dad's house, and part of my progress through that, my process, is to clear out the refrigerator of things that were leftovers that they just, I didn't feel like eating the leftovers.
And that was a very specific item that Mom talked about, and that is what to do with leftovers.
Yeah.
And now at our house, we don't have the 6 kids at home. It's just us. However, the the leftovers still tend to multiply. So we'll pull something out and go, oh, let's add a little bit of this, add a little
Right.
bit of that. And we have the same amount of leftovers after dinner that we had before dinner.
Yes.
And so that's something that there's a cost to that. Maybe not a financial cost per se, but there's a cost of doing that. And that's time and taking time away from things that you would like to do.
I think there's also a health cost involved in that when you start cooking for just yourself or just two, how easy it is to do the easier preparation.
Yeah, it is.
And we had that conversation yesterday
Yeah.
about what is the cost of the nutritional
Oh, yeah.
situation when you're
Yeah.
start like, well, I don't want to go to all the process of cooking real food, so now you're dealing with a health cost.
Yep.
And I think we got Justin, did we?
Did we get Justin? Justin, are you there?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Oh,
I
now we can hear you.
Yes.
Sweet.
Hey.
Sweetness. Hey, first of all, Justin, thank you. Thank you for being with us. I appreciate it. I've pulled in
Yeah.
a marker. It's going to cost me. I know that. I know that, and I appreciate that. So I think, Justin, you've been listening in. One of the things I didn't want to leave until we kind of examined the cost of being at that age where we need some care. And I think it's really easy for people to say, hey, listen, I don't have a mortgage. Therefore, automatically, it's cheaper to be at home than it is to, get some help in a community. And again, certainly, if I'm bringing in some care every day, then those costs even up a little bit. But here's what I wondered, and I wondered if you could help us with is, we've talked a little bit about, okay, we got a mortgage, maybe we don't have the mortgage, but we still have insurance and interest and utilities, and we got to replace the roof, we got to paint the house, we've got landscaping, we've got our house is going to be covered in leaves here pretty quick. We've got all those costs, and we can look at those and get pretty close to what it costs. But here's what I'm wondering is, what's the cost of having all of that equity tied up in the house? Is there a cost to that? Is there something that we're not taking into account because we've got it all dumped into the house?
I think that there's a lot of I would say there's a lot of misconceptions that when we have our home paid for in retirement, everything's going to be okay. We're not going to have anything to pay for, but we forget about the insurance we've got to keep on the property. We forget about, oh yeah, there's going to be taxes, and those are going to go up and down. Sometimes, as of late, a lot of our tax bills have been going up from a real estate standpoint.
Yep.
And that won't ever be a fixed cost. It's a variable we just don't know about. But there is a lot of equity. Most people's wealth is in real estate, either from their primary residence or from second homes or whatever that may be. And if there's a way that you can tap some of that equity prior to, needing it, it's probably a good idea to have some options available to you. I'm a big fan of just making sure that we have every possibility open to us at any time if we ever needed it to be.
Yeah, so you I know there's a couple of ways to look at this asset, and we were in the last session we were talking about how it's really easy to not think of the house as an asset, and I get that. There's emotional involvement. There's some socialization. You're in a neighborhood, you've got friends, you go to church here, and all those things, and I get that. But the house is, right, still an asset, one of the assets?
I mean, from a financial planning standpoint, we absolutely look at that, right? It's part of the net worth. It's part of the total asset value of a client. And, if we run out of money, This year specifically in the stock market, if we've had money at risk, we've lost 25 or 30%. Even in a conservative portfolio, we could have lost 10 or 15%. And so in any of those situations, if one of our biggest assets is real estate, and we lose a bunch of money sitting in, an IRA or an investment account or something like that, then we have to start looking at other options. And Medicaid specifically looks very much for the home equity when they get involved. And so it is an asset, whether we like to look at it or not. It's still an asset.
So we had with us a gentleman who is in the mortgage business, and we talked a little bit about some options. For example, you could refinance. You get a home equity line of credit, and we looked also at a reverse mortgage, and so. In my mind, when I'm talking with folks, and now we have this added expense of care, right? We've got, whether we're bringing in home care or home health, the house is paid for, we have a place to live. That part is cheaper than being in, say, an assisted living community. But if we are cash poor at this point and we have equity over here, it's always, to me, okay, how can we access that? And sometimes selling the house is the right answer. I don't want to go jump there just right now, Justin, but what are some of the other things that we can think of? I like I said, I got the home equity line of credit, and the reverse mortgage. Talk to us. If those are available to you, how do you put that back into somebody's financial plan?
Well, and I think every individual will be different, and I don't think there's any way to generalize the answer of, is a reverse mortgage right for the client, or is it just a HELOC or a home equity line of credit? Is that the right answer? And I think everybody's a little different, but a couple of the key components that I would say make a lot of sense is if we are cash poor and, we have this asset that is paid for, or that is mostly paid for, and we don't necessarily care about where that asset goes. Maybe after we pass, maybe we just want to be able to stay at home. We want to be able to enjoy the rest of our lives. And if there's some asset there that it goes to the next generation, then great. If not, we just want to live here in our home for the rest of our life. Then I think a reverse mortgage can make a lot of sense. There are some restrictions and some suitability stuff that each person would have to go through. They're not exactly the cheapest thing in the world when you look at refinance costs and those types of things. But for some people, that may be the best option that they have. I had a client several months ago that wanted to, she had written all of her children out of the will. Her home was paid for, but she was struggling to make ends meet because the only income she had was Social Security. And of course, she would have taxes and insurance and all of those things that came up. And I didn't necessarily recommend a reverse mortgage, but I said, you might want to look into it. Of course, then she started doing some research and talked to some other people. And, for her, that made that was the right choice. Yeah. Yeah. And if she wants to move or sell the house, she still can. There's a lot of options still. And sometimes they do reverse mortgages with a line of credit. So you don't actually pay anything unless you need it. So there's just a lot of different options there. And for other clients who maybe have a great income and have a guaranteed pension and Social Security, maybe a home equity line of credit is the right fit, because if we put some money on the line of credit because, we had a bad month or a bad couple of months, then that's okay. We have the income to pay for that and we'll be okay. And maybe maybe because our income is okay, we'll be able to pay that back off. I don't know. But I think it just depends on the client and what it is they're really trying to get done.
I know in my office, I will get asked a particular question, and whoever brought the question to me is wanting me to answer a specific question, and the answer that they get each time is, well, that depends. And they hate it. They hate it with a passion. I know my kids are not thrilled with the, well, that depends, but that really is the case here, right? It depends. It depends on the situation. But I guess where I wanted to make sure that we had examined, or that we are open to when we talk to a family, is the use of this asset. And I know that it makes us feel good that it's all paid I'm I got that. And you and I have had this conversation about leaving stuff for the kids. I'm not motivated by that for clients, right? I'm hanging on to the house for the kids. Well, I don't care. And most of our clients, we've been fortunate, most of the clients, the kids are like, we just want mom and dad taken care of. We want the highest quality of life that they can have. And if there's anything left, great, but I prefer that they have a high quality of life. And, it'd be nice if we didn't have to come out of pocket to pay for that. So when you sit down with a couple and you're helping them put together a plan, what is it that you address with a house? Where do you go? How do you think about it? Is that just a cost, or does that go on the balance sheet? If it does go on the balance sheet, does that open up a different conversation?
Yeah, and it does. We always ask what the value is of the home and what they think the value, what their cost is. Do they still have a mortgage? We definitely include it as part of the assets because from our standpoint, we have to look at all available resources from, financial planning standpoint. And one of most everybody, including my own parents, will say that they want to have the home paid for and they want to have something to give to the kids. But I think what I hear mostly is I don't want to be a burden to my children. I don't want them to have to come out of pocket for something. I don't want to have to move in with them. I don't want to have to, do something while I'm still living that causes them great trials and tribulations, if you will. So I think that it's really important to understand what it is the client is after. I told my parents just a couple of months ago, I'm like, look at a reverse mortgage. My dad's probably going to have to work for another 10 years. He's 65. And, if he does a reverse mortgage, he doesn't have to make a payment.
Yes.
And I said, you could retire a little earlier and you could take advantage of that. Of course, their response was, no, we want to have this thing paid for the kids. And, most of the siblings are saying, look, we don't want the house. We would sell it anyway.
Yeah. Good point.
So,
right.
And I would say that most kids are that way. Most of the children that we speak to don't want the actual house. They would sell the home within, a few months of the passing of their parents, and they would divide the assets into the trust, or maybe that was already done if they had great attorneys, right? And made sure that everything was fixed and, that kind of thing. So I think that from the standpoint of what do we ask, we want to know the why. Why do they want to do this and why do they want to do that? And we try to help people understand that we're seeing it from an unemotional standpoint, right?
Yes.
We're unemotionally connected to the property.
Yep.
We're unemotionally connected to the value of the property. We just want to help them make the right choice with whatever it is they want to get done.
Very good. Very good. So the one thing that I think that folks overlook, and I guess you just said it, and it's the emotional attachment to a particular property. And I don't want to undervalue that or underestimate the emotional value of a particular property. But how do you get them? So in this case, you're kind of right in this because you've got parents that are right here. How do you get them to look maybe just a little bit more dispassionately at the house as this is a place to live, and I can't be as attached as I'd like to be to it, or maybe I shouldn't be as attached. Is there a discussion that you've had? Is there a way to get them to think of it maybe a little bit more? This is part of my, where I'm going with my retirement.
Well, if I had that answer, I might be a lot. I'll share this story because it's personal to me, right? My parents have 4 children. I'm the oldest of those children, and I have told them several times that I think they ought to they ought to look into some things, because retirement doesn't look super great for them. And so of the siblings, there's 3 of us that have done okay with, for income purposes and businesses and that kind of thing. And there is one that hasn't done as well. And I think their emotional connection is to their child who hasn't, it hasn't produced as much income or who doesn't have as much assets. And so they're really worried about that. And so I haven't been successful with my parents on that. I have been successful with clients in meeting with their children about what does make the most sense, because I have that unemotional connection. And I think with my own parents, it's too close. I think I'm too closely connected to them. Mm-hmm. I was the teenager at one point that they wanted to beat up and, that kind of thing. And now they don't want to really listen to the advice, but when we meet with clients, we ask, who is going to be the executor, or who is going to be the trustee of your trust, because we think it should be a conversation to have. This isn't something we should shy away from. We should be prepared for the worst. We should go over every option, and we should have a plan A through M so that we know what is the next plan of attack when and if we run out of money, or we do something different, or taxes go up, or something like that.
So what I'm hearing is that you see part of your role as being, let's say it this way, realistic in expectations and realistic in understanding ultimately the costs of being in their home.
Yeah. And I think too, oftentimes, especially over the last 10 or 15 years, most everybody who's had investment accounts have made pretty decent money. They've been able to average 5%, 6%, 7% interest. And if they had $1 million in retirement assets, that's $60,000 or $70,000 a year of income. And that takes care of a lot of things.
Yeah.
But what if we have another 2022 and all of our assets are sitting inside of something that's going to be variably changed for the worse? And now we have 800,000. Now that makes us think a little differently. And so I think I think we have to have those really honest, realistic conversations with people so that they understand the what ifs that could potentially come down the pipe.
Now, I appreciate the previous generations and the hard work and effort that went into buying a home, owning a home, taking care of the home. We've learned that. We're tied to that as well. The question that comes to my head is there another investment outside of the home where we work so doggone hard to maintain it? Is there another one?
Not really. That's the one that most everybody wants to buy, pay for, have paid for. I would say IRAs. A lot of times people will put money into 401ks and IRAs and they'll try to save as much as they can. But I would say that we put way more effort into our homes than anything.
I just dawned on me, we put a tremendous amount. Now, I'm part of that is good, right? Mm-hmm. This is a responsibility. And we need to keep up the home, and it's a place to live. I get that, but doggone it. I guess my thinking is simply, if it came time, if there were a time where we were looking at, we needed to move into independent living and we're not able to, purchase a place there, and that's going to cost us a certain amount. I get that. But at the same time, we're shifting a heavy load that, we get to a point where we just can't do it anymore at home, even though we try. And so it's all this work and effort, and there comes a time where we have to make that decision of, well, maybe we need an apartment. Maybe we need a place where somebody else takes on all the responsibilities and pays the taxes and the insurance and does the repairs. Is it really, at that point, is the decision really just I'm hanging on to the house for the kids? Or is there another way to position this? And I know this isn't fair because I didn't give you a fair warning about the questions and that, but what's the decision point here? Do you think?
Well, and I think that the majority of the time when kids are brought into the equation, when the oldest children or some of the oldest children or maybe all of the children are brought in, it does become a very emotional decision. And so the best decision making is done prior to that, having a plan in place as to, if we do X, this is what's going to happen. And if we can't do that, then we're going to do this. And I think you have to have everybody on the same page. A lot of times it's just the unknowing. I think a lot of people just don't know what all of the options are. They, from the time that we're in high school, we've been told, save money, save as much as you can, put it into a 401k, do something else, right? But we don't know anything about end of life planning much. Most people don't, right? We don't talk about it a lot. And we don't even really talk about financial planning a lot in high school or college.
No.
You can take a lot of financial classes and they won't teach you anything about, the markets or life insurance, long-term care insurance, any of those things. So, the best time to do that is when everybody is sound mind and they can make a really good logical decision.
Well, and I think to add to that is that we're not under the pressure of having to do something right now or in the next couple of weeks or months, but we can make a decision right now. Well, and not a completely unemotional decision. I get that, but at some point we have to make a right decision for ourselves. And I'm hearing your folks. There's a time when, maybe we can't do what we would like for the kids. We have to put ourselves in a position to take care of ourselves first.
Does this take us back to the concept of having our team put together? Prior to my life with Idaho State Planning, I was at Micron. I was a process planner. And we always tried to make our decisions with the right group, putting in all what Justin's talking about, all these little variables. And when we have our family meetings, for our clients, we want to have all the kids there, but it's also nice to have them come to us with input from their accountants, their financial advisors, their doctors, everything. Those kind of plans, if we do it right, those decisions can be made like what Justin was saying beforehand. When we get to this point, that's when we have to pull the trigger.
Yeah, Justin, I would think yes on that question. The answer is yeah. Get the team in place. Get the professionals involved.
Yeah, and do it sooner than later. Don't wait until it's dire, because when you do, it's hard to make those decisions. Everybody's distraught. Everybody's very emotional. Emotions run high when things are changing in our lives, and the sooner you can do that, the better off everybody is.
Recently, based on some conversations that you and I have had, and some conversations from some coaching that I'm getting, it was I sat down and I tried to look ahead, right? So where am I going to be in 3 years? Actually, where am I going to be in a year? Where am I going to be in 3 years? Where am I going to be in 10 years or 15 or 20? And, that's difficult planning. That really is difficult to get yourself to think out that far. It's not a wasted effort. Because it causes us to at least begin the conversation. And my poor wife, not knowing that this was something that was going on with me, I was going, all right, where are we going to be in 10 years, babe? Mm-hmm. We're going to be 70 years old, and then we're going to be 80 years old. And so, where are we going to be? And it was extremely difficult for her.
Right.
She, do we have to decide this? I go, well, if we can't at least imagine where we're going to be, how do we get there? Mm-hmm. And then I realized, Justin, and I know you do this with your clients, but at least in one way or another, and I was looking at it backwards. Mm-hmm. It's not where am I going to be in a year or 3 years or 5 years. I need to figure out where am I going to be in 20 years. And then, well, what am I going to do in the next 10? And then what am I going to do in 5 years and 3 years? And what am I doing this next year to get me to this place 20 years? And so it's the reverse planning maybe that makes more sense than, okay, this month, next year, and... did that make sense?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've used in our firm, not with our clients, but with our firm, was in 10 years, where do we want to be? And then put ourselves in a thought exercise, looking back, how did I get here?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And we've used that, like, well, if I want to be at this point, then I look back, what are the things I had to do
to get there?
And I have used that in other parts of my life in planning, and it's like, that is a very good thought exercise.
Yeah. Did it work?
Yeah, it is. Well, with the firm, we've done fantastic things within our business that have made us to be more prepared to help our clients because we looked forward and then we said, how do we get there?
How did we get there? And you don't you do a similar planning to that, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to mention, I don't have a charger on me because this was kind of sprung on me last minute. But my phone may die, and I thank you for having me. So if it dies, just know that it's just the phone. It's not something happened to me.
You haven't died.
But I haven't died.
Okay,
no.
Thank you.
I would say yes. I mean, we have to do the planning with the entire team. We have to do early planning, the sooner the better, and you have to make adjustments to your plan. There are going to be changes, and life happens. Things come at us, and we just have to realize that it's always going to be changing. And we have to know that that's okay. We'll make adjustments, and we have to meet with our team, and we make those adjustments. So I agree. The sooner, the better. The more you have, the more team members you have, trusted advisors in your corner, and the better you can make those decisions without the emotion, is everybody would be winning a lot more, for sure.
Yeah. And I would suggest it's never completely without emotion, but we have a little more control when we're thinking 10 years out or 20 years out. I think we're able to compartmentalize a little bit better.
Yeah, we'll use that phrase crisis mode at work. And decisions made in crisis mode are the most difficult. Costs that come from the decisions made in crisis mode are always magnified.
Yeah.
It's like if you go to the store and you're hungry, if you go to the grocery store and you're hungry, you're always going to spend.
That's my favorite time to go, Justin. That's my favorite time. We need more Oreos.
Right, I get more Oreos. I do.
Or you do like me, oh, I think we need this, and I get home and I've got 5 other jars of
you
that.
already
Now
got that.
I'm like,
I know. I do that too. Hey, Justin, real quickly, we gave you a quick introduction, but we'd like to do it fuller, and then we're going to probably wrap up here anyway. So if your phone goes out, oh, we lost him. Did we lose him?
Yep, we lost it.
Oh, thank you, Justin.
Well, tell them about Justin.
Oh, thank you for being on. We've worked with Justin for a number of years. He is with Adalant Financial, and they really work hard to get people to make good decisions around their money. And so one of the things that we have in common is there's a lot of education. You educate. And the goal is to get very clear on where you want to be. And then his job is to help you to think through how to get there. And so we've worked well with Justin and his team. They have a great team. So that's Justin Walker at Adalant Financial. They've got an office over in Emmett. That's kind of the where the family is. And then they have an office over in Meridian. And sometimes as he's driving back and forth, we get together at Bodacious Pig for some
Tri-tip.
tri-tip. Yes, that's the way it goes.
Fries with fry sauce.
Yeah.
You know what I think about Justin? When I think of him, we've used the term often, and it's the same thing that goes with every guest that we've had over these 3 days. They get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Based on the conversations that we've had, and just so you know, these are people that we didn't just go through. I was going to say the phone book, but nobody knows what the phone book is anymore. I do some coaching of some attorneys, and some of the younger ones just look at me like, "Oh, I've heard of the phone
yellow
book."
pages.
Yeah, the phone book.
Were they really yellow?
They were actually, and so are the legal pads, and I don't understand that one either, but we'll talk about that at a different time. Anyhow, these are not people that we just went through the phone book to find. These are people that we've had some connection with, and we have worked with them before, and they bring a very particular expertise to the mix, and so this has worked out really well. And yes, they get it, and I can speak highly of everybody that was here, but I would be thrilled if people found their own experts, their own team. You could draw from the team that we had put together. That's great. We would love to be a member of your team. But the overall, everything, as we go back, everything from your physical health, your mental, emotional health, staving off some Alzheimer's or dementia, all financially avoiding, some scams, people that want to take your money. Every one of those situations, I thought what was critical was having a team.
Having a team that understands the concept of a team. How easy is it to have a professional who only sees you through their window?
Got it. That's a good point. And so bringing together your team, the goal there is for you to do the best that you can, to have the best life that you can, and understanding, and this, I think this correlates. I think I can give you chapter and verse. Understanding what the team does and how you can't do all of that yourself.
Right.
I know there are some men, and heavy on men this time, that think they can. And I've seen that. We've seen that. We've had a couple of clients lost their husband, and the first thing they wanted to know is, would it be okay if I sold all of this particular stock? It was stock that he had acquired, working for a particular company or outfit for his life, and he just kept buying more and more stock, and it was not doing well. It actually had tanked a little bit, and so his widow was, "Can I sell this stock?" Well, the answer is, well, yes. Yeah, I mean,
Should you?
you can, and probably makes sense. Let's get you in touch with
A professional.
a professional and expert who can help you to do that. And so the concept of a team is huge, and the humility maybe to know that there's something that they can provide to you.
And going back to our very first day, the coaches see that. You know, a player who thinks that they have to win the game themselves.
All by themselves. Yep.
Yeah, whether it's a quarterback or a shooting guard
Yep.
or a striker or whatever, that person doesn't understand the importance of a team.
No, and there's just some awesome things that Coach Petrino said, and so that's always worth go back and review that with what he said. I love the fact that the team was not just the 5 on the floor. Although when we watch, we're always thinking, well, that's the team. And if you've played a sport, you go, oh, no, there's some folks on the bench.
Right.
Well, in addition to the folks on the bench.
And the person wrapping the tape.
Oh, yeah.
The medical people, it's just,
Yeah. And I loved what he had to say in how the team players, the coaches watched how they treated the managers and the others that are not out on the floor.
Yep.
And everyone had their the role that they played. So I think we're going to wrap up. This was a great 3 days. Ton of stuff. Maybe it's worth reviewing some of these and not all at once. I know I'm going to have to review because even though I was here, I was missing so much. There was a lot that was shared with us. So thank you for joining us. Thanks to all the people that helped put this on. Thanks to all of the team that came and shared their expertise and their opinions and just good old-fashioned common sense on how to make all this work. It was interesting. Dr. Desai said, well, there's about 40% of avoiding, dementia decline or Alzheimer's. He said there's about 40% that, it's just this hard, factual stuff, and it's on paper. That was interesting. He said that's on paper. So in real life, I would say it's more like 20%. Mm-hmm. And so we asked, well, what's the other 80%? And that's when he started talking about who do you talk to? You get out and walk. Do you see the world? Do you participate in the world? And I loved what he had to say there. And I think all of the folks that we had understood that as well. Yep. This is on paper. This is real life. There are ways to do this. So you have a great life. We look forward to seeing you anytime we put on Lunch and Learn with our members, and we will have more and more podcasts. And I don't know that we'll have as high production value as we've had with this crew, and
fantastic.
That's too bad. That was pretty good, and I love the fact I didn't have to think about it. I love that. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.